Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you were willing to give up everything? Your dignity, your pride, even your sanity? I loved him like that. And he, the husband I once trusted completely, did the unthinkable. He betrayed me with my stepmother. Yes, you heard that right. Stepmother. The woman who used to hug me on my birthdays, who cried when I graduated college, who once whispered in my ear, "I love you like my own daughter." That woman stole the man of my life. Right when I was carrying our first child. I'm Rachel Monroe, 32 years old, creative director at a small fashion company in San Diego. Independent, strong, educated, and until that incident, I believed I knew how to choose the right man. I met Ethan Scott at a charity auction 3 years ago. He was tall, well-spoken, calm like a man who had seen life, with eyes that made me feel seen and protected. He was like a hero straight out of a novel. Ethan was a lawyer, divorced, no kids, clean past, charming looks, six-figure income. I still remember the way he looked at me the first time, like I was the only gift he had ever wished for. And I fell in love. Hard. Blindly. We got married after years of dating. A dream wedding. Custom-designed gown, fresh flowers flown from Italy, a guest list full of notable names. My stepmother, Isabel, of course, was there. She smiled all day, held my arm, fixed my hair, and whispered, "You've finally found someone worthy." Sounds sweet, doesn't it? But if I had known she was looking at Ethan with hunger in her eyes, I would never have let her touch me that day. Isabel came into my father's life when I had just turned 11, just months after my mother died in a car accident. At first, I truly believed she brought light into my father's life, the man who had crumbled after losing his wife. Isabel was gentle, nurturing, always smiling. But I soon realized she didn't love my father. What she loved was status, money, and the title wife of a renowned surgeon. I used to catch her glancing at me with envy when I received my honors degree, or when I brought boyfriends home for dinner, eyes filled with jealousy. Maybe she couldn't stand that I, the stepdaughter, was loved more by my father than she ever was. Maybe, from the very beginning, she wanted to replace me, not just in my father's heart, but in the eyes of every man around me. When I told Ethan I was pregnant, he cried. It was a moment I'll never forget. He held me tightly, whispering, "You are the best thing that ever happened to me." I trusted him completely. I thought happiness had finally chosen me. I started preparing the nursery, learned to meditate, ate clean, kept a strict sleep schedule. I even quit work earlier than planned to take care of myself and the baby. Because I trusted Ethan, I didn't notice. I didn't notice he was coming home later. I didn't notice the sudden need to lock his phone. I didn't notice the unfamiliar perfume lingering on his shirts, the scent Isabel had been wearing for over a decade. Everything collapsed on a Friday afternoon. I came home earlier than expected due to a minor pregnancy complication and just wanted to rest. Ethan said he had a client meeting in Los Angeles, but as I stepped inside the house, I heard laughter, familiar laughter. I walked, like in a dream, down the hallway to the living room door. It wasn't locked, and what I saw will haunt me forever, like a deep cut in my memory. Ethan, Isabel, on the sofa, in a position I cannot describe. She turned when she saw me. Her face showed no shock, no shame, just a cold smile. Ethan jumped up, pulling his clothes back on. "Rachel, it's not what you think." I stood there, hand on my belly, trembling, all the blood draining from my face. And Isabel just sneered. "Now you know why he doesn't want to touch you anymore." Her voice was calm, as if I was the intruder. Not them. I wanted to scream. I wanted to lunge at them, slap them both across the face. But the only thing I could do was turn around and walk away, in silence. I started bleeding lightly on the way to the hospital. The doctor said I was lucky the baby was safe. But I wasn't. I wasn't the same anymore. From that moment on, I was dead, in a way. The woman who loved, trusted, hoped, was killed by the two people she trusted most. And that was when I began planning my revenge. Not an impulsive strike, not a slap in anger. I would make them lose everything, the way they stole everything from me. Ethan would lose his career, Isabel would lose her status, and the entire world they had built on lies would crumble before their eyes. I would wait for the right moment. I would smile when they begged for mercy. But before that could happen, I needed to become silent. Silent to observe, silent to make them feel safe, silent so they would walk into the trap on their own. I moved out that very day, without a word. No tears, no screaming. I went to stay with my best friend, a seasoned lawyer with expertise in marriage and assets. I started gathering evidence. I started talking to people who had once been victims of Ethan and Isabel in the past. I began to build the most perfect plan of my life. Because when you've lost everything, there's nothing left to fear. And when a pregnant woman is betrayed, she becomes the worst nightmare of the one who betrayed her. I'm not sure why, but ever since I was a child, I always felt there was something off in the way Isabel looked at me. It was never truly the gaze of a mother, not even a stepmother. It was cold, sharp, and cruel without reason. I remember crying a lot, not because I missed my mom, but because I was terrified of being left with a strange woman who wore a deceitful smile. My father was enchanted. Isabel was the type of woman who made men feel challenged, seductive appearance, voice sweet as syrup, and a demeanor that made others cautious. She was the kind of person who always needed to be in the spotlight, and if she couldn't have it, she'd destroy everything. Jealousy started from the smallest things. I remember the first time I won an award in a school writing contest. I brought the small trophy home, ran into the kitchen where Isabel was cooking, excited to show it off. She glanced at it and replied, "Oh, that's nice. But your little sister won a statewide piano competition last month. This is okay." I didn't have a sister. She was talking about her niece, her sister's daughter. But in Isabel's eyes, every success I had was a threat. Every step I moved forward was a dagger to the ego she bled from, an insecurity never healed. When I was 16, I earned an honor scholarship to a prestigious high school. My father beamed with pride, but Isabel invited me to a talk in the living room. Under dim light, she clearly said, "Rachel, you need to learn humility. Don't make people around you feel small because you're too talented." Humility? Or was it shrinking myself so she wouldn't feel threatened? Ethan, the man I thought was my whole world. Then Ethan came along. He was a classmate in college, studying law like me. He had a gentle smile, eyes that truly listened, and a way of making me feel like the only person in a crowded room. I loved Ethan as if my heart had never been torn apart. He came at the exact moment I needed someone to tell me, "You're okay. You're enough." The first time I brought Ethan home, Isabel looked at him for a long time, too long for it not to feel eerie. Then she smiled, a faint smile, as if she had just found something amusing. I thought I was imagining things. I wish now I had trusted my instincts sooner. Twisted jealousy, and a betrayal beyond forgiveness. Throughout the 3 years Ethan and I dated, Isabel never openly liked him, but she didn't dislike him either. She showed too much interest. Casual check-ins, deliberate touches when handing him wine glasses. One time I saw her standing too close to Ethan in the kitchen, whispering something that made him jump and blush. When I walked in, they stopped. I asked. He said, "It's nothing. Mom just asked me some silly stuff." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Until I was 6 months pregnant and found out Ethan had secretly bought a luxury apartment co-owned with Isabel. In their email exchange, there was a subject line, "As long as Rachel doesn't know, we're fine." I don't even remember how hard I screamed or cried. I just remember my belly was already swollen, and the baby kicked violently, as if it too felt the pain of that betrayal. I didn't leave. I made a plan. I didn't walk away. I didn't explode. Not because I was weak, but because I needed time to destroy them. Not with words, but with the things they valued most: money and reputation. Ethan was a lawyer, starting his own legal firm with his best friend. Isabel was a popular beauty blogger, building her own cosmetics brand with funding from investors. I knew their weaknesses, and I started doing the one thing I was better at than enduring: planning. Step-by-step blood withdrawal. No knife, no blood, but more painful than death. I started by pretending to forgive. I even organized a family party to declare, "We will keep trying for the child." Both Ethan and Isabel were stunned but quickly joined in because they thought I was foolish, weak. Meanwhile, I quietly met with a private lawyer. Not an ordinary lawyer, but an old friend working in financial investigation. I provided him with all data on the accounts under Ethan's name, the legal company being set up, and the shady contracts Ethan once bragged about as secret financial leverage. At the same time, I approached Isabel's two main investors. I contacted them as a relative with insider financial information and showed them the analyses I gathered about how Isabel misused funds and gave cash to the unregistered advisor, Ethan. One of them withdrew capital. The other handed the case to the Commercial Investigation Agency. Isabel began receiving letters requesting tax audits. Ethan discovered the company was under investigation for suspected contract fraud. I said nothing, never threatened. I just sat there, growing quieter every day, letting them slowly drown in what they once believed was victory. The decisive event, the hearing at the family court, I filed for divorce. But not quietly. I chose to go public and invited local media. Some said I was crazy, but I knew what I was doing. At the first hearing, when the judge asked the reason for the divorce, I stood up, voice steady. Your Honor, my husband has cheated, not just with another woman, but with my stepmother, the woman I once regarded as my mother after my own mother's death. The courtroom fell silent like death. Ethan's face turned pale. Isabel, in an expensive beige dress, froze. I placed a USB drive on the table. Inside are all recordings, emails, and transfers under their names. I don't need to keep them close. I just want justice. At the end of the hearing, Ethan's lawyer requested a postponement to verify the evidence. I walked out of the court, hand on my belly. The baby kicked softly. I smiled for the first time in months. I didn't need to shout at them. I didn't need a knife. I just needed the truth and to let them destroy each other through greed and betrayal. But that was just the beginning. I hadn't stopped. I had one final plan, the part that would keep them down for the rest of their lives, and I will tell you about it in the next part. I used to think revenge would make me feel relief. But no, it didn't make the pain disappear. It only made me stand stronger. After the first trial, public opinion exploded. From a seemingly private divorce, media and social networks spread the news. Young lawyer accused of cheating with pregnant wife's stepmother. A headline like a knife stripping Ethan's honor overnight. 3 days after the hearing, Ethan's law firm website began receiving angry, anonymous comments. Can't believe a lawyer could be so unethical. You betrayed a pregnant woman with her stepmother? Are you even a man? Destroying women, then their families. Ethan Scott, you're scum. A local newspaper even interviewed my representative lawyer. He didn't say much, but left this line, "The truth will defend itself, while lies will burn those who create them." I was sitting in a rented apartment when Ethan suddenly appeared. He banged on the door repeatedly, shouting like a madman, "Rachel, open the door! What do you want from me? You're ruining my career." I opened the door, silently, looking straight at him, the man who was once my lover, the one I trusted so much I lost myself. I never wanted to ruin you, Ethan, but you did it yourself when you betrayed your child and the woman who was willing to die for you. I didn't mean to hurt you. Isabel, she said, me. What did she say? That I'm unworthy? That I'm weak and you should find a woman more fiery? You listened to someone who once called herself your stepmother, Ethan? I was under pressure. We're not as close as before. You're always busy, you. I was busy being pregnant, busy sacrificing, and you were busy betraying. He was silent, no reason left to forgive. I closed the door, this time without tears. Inside me, that love was dead, leaving only a cursed memory. A week later, Isabel arranged to meet me at a cafe. She wore a white dress, perfectly groomed hair, still carrying the elegance as if the recent scandal was just a minor rumor. "Rachel, I just want to talk. We're both adults. Things can be solved civilly." I laughed. A bitter, chilling laugh. "What do you want to say? That I misunderstood? That there's nothing between you and my husband?" Isabel, sipping tea. "We all have moments of weakness. Ethan needed someone to listen, and I was lonely. But those are just feelings. I still raised you for 10 years, Rachel." "You didn't raise me. You envied me from the day I stepped into the house. You taught me that successful women are threats. You taught me to endure silently. And now, you want me to forget everything?" "You're stubborn. I always knew one day you would rebel." "I'm not rebelling. I'm just choosing the right side, the side of justice." I stood up, leaving her sitting there. A woman who once thought herself a queen in a castle of lies, now just a woman losing everything to foolish greed. 2 months later, Isabel's cosmetics company announced closure due to unclear legal issues. All investments were withdrawn. A journalist revealed, founder accused of money laundering through personal accounts and illegal investments. Ethan, after 3 financial investigations, had his license revoked for 12 months. His law firm shut down under media pressure. Those two, once the strong ones in my eyes, now exposed in the press, becoming the talk of online communities. I was not happy, but I breathed a sigh of relief. Justice had come. I gave birth on a rainy October night. No one by my side, just me, the sound of rain, and labor pains tearing my body apart. Lying in the delivery room, I screamed in waves, not just from the body, but from all the pent-up pain. I thought I wouldn't make it, but then the cry came. My child. A baby girl. Brown eyes, black hair, lips pressed tight. I cried for the first time in months. My daughter. I stayed, waiting for you. A month after birth, Ethan sent a letter. No apology, just saying he wanted to see our daughter. I agreed to meet at a lawyer's office with a third party witnessing. When he saw her, he was stunned, his eyes red. What did you name her? Me Hope, because she's the only thing left for her mother amid the ruins. Ethan, I know I can't change the past, but I want a chance to make it right. Me. She doesn't need a father who only apologizes after losing everything. She needs a mother strong enough to protect her from people like you. I didn't look back as I left. Not because I was cruel, but because I knew forgiveness doesn't mean keeping them close. Now, every morning I wake up holding my daughter, looking out at the gentle sunlight through the window. I know I still have scars, deep, persistent, but I also know one thing. I have moved on and survived. Ethan and Isabel? No one talks about them anymore. The news has cooled off, but I don't need them to pay forever, because that silence itself is a lifelong sentence. 3 years have passed, fast, enough to change a person. But for me, every day is a battle. I live in a small coastal town in Oregon, where the sound of waves at night no longer makes me feel empty. I work a completely new job, a preschool teacher. A simple job, but enough to see the sparkling eyes of children every morning. I rent a small wooden house with a garden of white chrysanthemums and my daughter's laughter echoing across the porch. Hope. She is now 3 years old, smart, cheerful, especially sensitive to her mother's emotions. She has my eyes, but every time I look at her, I see the whole sky reaching out to me. I met Daniel at the town library. He's a veterinarian, newly moved from Arizona. We talked during random times, reading books together. And gradually, I found myself smiling again. No more shyness, no more fear of men. Daniel didn't push. He listened. And most of all, he loved Hope like his own daughter. One time when I was folding clothes, Hope ran up and hugged Daniel from behind. Hope, can you be my dad? I was speechless. But Daniel didn't hesitate. Daniel, hugging the girl in a warm voice, if your mom allows, I'd be very happy to be your dad. I turned away to wipe my tears, not from pain, but because my heart was truly healing. One early winter afternoon, when I was picking Hope up from class, I saw a man standing silently by the gate. I recognized him right away, Ethan. He looked haggard, his hair starting to gray, and his eyes no longer had that arrogant glare from the past. I walked up, coldly. What are you doing here? Ethan, I heard. You and our daughter are here. Rachel, I'm not here to ask you to come back. I know that's impossible, but Hope, I begged to see her. Just once. I looked into his eyes. I didn't see love. I saw remorse. But the kind of remorse that comes too late. She doesn't remember you, and I haven't mentioned you either. She has another man she calls Dad. What do you think you are to her now? Ethan, I don't want to take anything back. I just want to say sorry, even just once, to my own daughter. I stayed silent, then looked down at Hope, holding a stuffed bear in her hand. Hope, do you want to meet a friend of Mommy's? She looked up, stared at Ethan. Her eyes showed a bit of confusion. Ethan bent down, smiling. Hi, sweetie. You're not my dad. My dad is Daniel. My dad carries me to bed every night. My dad makes heart-shaped pancakes every Sunday. Ethan froze. Hope ran behind me, whispering, Mommy, I don't like that man. He makes you sad. I leaned down and held her close. Ethan still stood there, like a ghost from the past, and for the first time I wasn't angry at him anymore. Only pity remained. You see? She already gave you the answer. Ethan nodded slightly, turned around, didn't look back. That night, I sat on the porch. Daniel made hot chocolate. Hope slept in my arms, hugging her old teddy bear. Daniel, I never asked about your ex, but today I saw him. Would you be mad if I still have scars from the past? Not a passionate, blind love, but a kind of love that comes from trust, from healing, from the days when both were silent but didn't leave each other. A week later, I received a letter with no sender's name. Inside was a photo. It was Ethan, volunteering in a poor area in Mexico, along with a scribbled note, "Thank you for letting me know what loss feels like. Thanks to that, I now understand the value of kindness. May the little girl always be happy, even without me." I folded it back, didn't cry, didn't smile, just sighed, as if closing an old chapter. I once thought betrayal would destroy me forever, but no, it only made me lose my direction. And it was love, the right kind of love, with enough time, enough patience that brought me back. And hope? She's the proof that from ashes, small, gentle flowers can still bloom, full of hope. My name is Hope. They gave me that name when my mother's world was falling apart, as if the only thing left after all the pain, betrayal, and breaking was hope. I don't clearly remember his face, the man who helped bring me into this world. I just know that every time I asked my mother about my biological father, her eyes would sink a little, like a small storm was drifting through her heart. But then she'd smile. Always that smile, gentle, tired, but proud. I grew up with my mother and Uncle Daniel. He's not of my blood, but not once have I felt he treated me any differently. Since I was learning to walk, he was there, patiently holding my hand every time I fell. He didn't buy me expensive gifts, but every birthday cake was baked by his own hands. He didn't promise me the world, but he was always there when I needed a hug. And that's why I say, I once had two fathers, but only one taught me how to love. I know what my mother went through. Not because she told me everything, but because some wounds, no matter how hard you try to hide, still leave traces in the eyes, in the way she held me tightly whenever the wind changed, as if afraid of losing me one more time. I once heard her crying at night when she thought I was asleep. I once saw her staring off into the distance, clutching an old letter someone had sent. And I once caught Uncle Daniel coming up, holding her from behind, saying nothing, just standing still, like a rock in the middle of a storm. Mom said there are things a child doesn't need to know, but also shouldn't be kept from forever. And when I was old enough, she told me, the man who used to be her husband, Ethan, was also my biological father. He once betrayed her, not with a stranger, but with her own stepmother, Isabel, the woman who lived under the same roof, who called my grandmother sister. A betrayal that was both sick and cruel, not only tearing apart my mother's heart, but also destroying her faith in family blood. She was abandoned while pregnant with me, giving birth alone amidst a storm of scandal, bankruptcy, and disdain. But she didn't collapse. She survived. And from those ashes, she built a new world for the two of us. A world where Ethan had no place. I met Ethan for the first time when I was 10 years old. It was a Saturday afternoon in autumn. I had just come back from art class and saw my mother standing at the door, pale-faced. Uncle Daniel looked calm, but I could clearly see the muscles in his arms tensing as if holding something back. Ethan was standing there, his hair graying, face gaunt, as if he had lost more than just a family. Hope, he called my name. That voice, there was nothing familiar about it. I didn't answer. I stood between Mom and Uncle, and by some instinct, I stepped back toward Mom, where I felt safe. "You're not the only one this child belongs to," Mom said, her voice firm. "But if you still have any sense of basic dignity, then don't come near again." Ethan turned to me. His eyes were brimming with tears. "I'm sorry. I was wrong." I still didn't answer. I asked only one question, a question I had kept deep inside for a long time. If you loved Mom, why did you betray her with her own family? He had no answer. Every word suddenly became meaningless, and that was the last time I saw Ethan. In the years that followed, I continued to grow up in the quiet yet unwavering love from Mom and Uncle Daniel. Uncle taught me how to tell right from wrong, taught me how to love without expecting anything in return. He was also the first to teach me how to drive, the one who sat through the night just to wait for me to finish my exams, the one who wiped my tears when I experienced my first heartbreak. And Mom, she was the quiet light that never went out. She never taught me hatred, even though she had every reason to. She taught me self-respect, how to rise from brokenness, and above all, how to forgive, not because others deserved it, but because I deserve peace. Today, as I sit down to write these lines, I am a 25-year-old woman. I'm preparing to get married to a man I trust completely. And I want to say thank you to Mom, who gave birth to me, even when the whole world turned its back on her. To Uncle, who shares no blood with me, but never once made me feel the absence of a father's love. And to Ethan, who taught me my first lesson about pain so that I could understand what healing truly means. I once had two fathers, but only one taught me what love really is. Not everyone who gives us life truly loves us, and not everyone who comes later is just a replacement. Sometimes the greatest love doesn't come from blood, but from hearts that have once been broken and still choose to love. My name is Hope, and I am the beautiful ending of a story that was once filled with pain. There are wounds that never fully heal, but from them we learn how to heal ourselves. There are people who once destroyed us with the very love they pretended to give, but there are also those who quietly enter our lives and with real love mend what was lost. If you've ever been betrayed, ever fallen, ever wanted to give up everything, then remember, you deserve to be loved. Not because you're perfect, but because you've been brave enough to keep living after the pain. If this story made you pause for a few seconds, if it reminded you of yourself or someone you once knew, leave a comment, share your thoughts. I read every single word. Don't forget to hit like if you believe this story is worth spreading. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because maybe today, you're the reason someone doesn't feel so alone. And subscribe to the channel to keep walking alongside stories full of tears, but also full of strength, hope, and rebirth. Because these aren't just storytelling videos. This is where we walk through the darkness together and find the light within our own hearts.